Microphone on. Hey guys, Sleepy Reader here. This is kind of a little adventure in comic book minutia. The things I waste my brain power on. Just this past week, I suddenly started thinking about where titles in comic books are put. You know, the title of the individual issue, the adventure, the episode. Where do they put those? I just sort of started noticing they were all over the place, and hadn't really thought about that before. In my mind, the traditional comic book is based on all the Marvel comics I read as a kid. This example goes a little bit further back, but I saw lots of reprints, and I think everything was based on these old Stan Lee style things. So I always expect the title to be up at the top of a splash page on the first page, preferably inside some kind of shape, often a kind of explosion kind of shape. When strikes the Silver Surfer? This one, I think they kind of skipped this by the time I was reading Marvel. See a raging, fighting mad thing, leap into action, ... When strikes the Silver Surfer? So it's kind of like a sub-headline and then the main headline, the main title. And it was always on the first page. Then you got your credits, you got your splash page. That's the way things were supposed to be. Sometimes they would be like this in a scroll or in some other shape just for variety. And then maybe actually just words right over the drawing. That seemed a little more radical. And then some, very special issues would have something where it was a bit more integrated into the picture. I'm guessing here that was Neil Adams' idea. I don't know for sure, but it just seems like he was kind of into the more innovative stuff back then, this being a Neil Adams splash page. So yeah, that's the way things were. Here's another way of kind of doing a fun splash page where it's kind of like a poster. But you have the first page, splash page, big title, credits down at the bottom, your story starts, bang, there you go. I do think sometime during the 80s, they got the titles became less and less prominent. They seemed to be a little lazier about them. Maybe like the titles were a little more of an afterthought to the visual design of the first page. Here we have one that isn't even totally a splash page. How radical is that? And here's another 80s example where that title is just almost lost on the page. Re-enter Reactron. So they were too busy, getting on with the story and writing all their dense captions and stuff to be too concerned about the title. And maybe DC never was quite as into the titles as Marvel. Because Marvel came out of the whole Stan Lee thing and he was into, big, big, big. But at the same time we had, in the early 70s, coming out of the Marvel thing, would be these DC comics that Jack Kirby was doing, and they were unlike any other DC comic. There'd be an opening page with something like a title on it, and then there would be a big double-page splash page. That was totally radical at the time. Then a little more story, and then another kind of title page. In this case, and then the credits. In this case, the title is Orion of the New Gods, but he would do it in a variety of ways, I think. Oh, maybe I'm wrong. I'm pretty sure, though, like if I dug up some other commandees and stuff, sometimes the real title would be later on. And there would often be chapters, each with its own title. Let's see if these ones have that. I have a feeling they don't. Of course I don't. One thing is I had a bunch of different things in mind. I didn't find all of my examples. Anyway, so then I think coming out of the Jack Kirby, eventually some other people who particularly had control over what they were doing, like for instance Warlord, that was written and drawn by Mike Grell, to show that they were kind of special, would have an opening page, kind of like a an opening scene in a TV show, and then a double page spread with the actual title. Someone cross out thing evil, something evil. So that would add a little, there'd be kind of a, you were used to getting the title here, and you go, no title. And then you'd open up and woo, really big. This is even bigger than your regular splash page. And so I think that became a common thing to do for those who wanted to make their comics seem a little more special. And here's a little more innovative way. It's both partially a double page spread, partially single page, by the great Rick Vetch, with inks by Alfredo Alcala. One of my favorite inkers, and I never bothered to learn how to pronounce his name. Shame on me. So that was kind of, and I think after a while that kind of, especially for artists doing their own thing, this is John Byrne writing and drawing, it would become a standard thing for a while to have that first page and then your double page splash page. You're spread out. And of course, but this is actually from the 90s, and by then printing technology was quite good, and you could do what's called the bleed and have your splash page go to the edge of the pages, and you get a lot of drama out of that. So another thing that developed, sort of the same idea, one page of lead up and then your splash page. And I think that became a little more common during the 80s. Frank Miller in Daredevil was a huge innovator at the time. Of course, he was drawing a lot from stuff that had been done in the past that people just weren't doing at the time, such as stuff done by Will Eisner. So he would do, on this particular issue, to make it extra special dramatic, 2 pages of action before the title. And the title is kind of integrated into the design of a page that is not a splash page. So that was kind of unusual at the time. That was very striking. When every issue you would pick up of Daredevil off the racks, you wouldn't know how he was going to do it, how the book was going to open. One of the many pleasures of Daredevil at the time. Now I think a very common thing is starting on the 3rd page. Or no, the 4th page, I believe. So there's the first 3 pages of Wonder Woman, and then a splash page with a title. The title is nicely done enough, but kind of humbler. It's not all over your page. So I think that's a pretty standard thing. Splash page on the 4th page with the title there. I think you see that a lot, at least in DC Comics, because Marvel Comics has become a bit different. I think in Sandman, titles were done in all different kinds of ways. And this one, I think, here's the thing that gets me the most. But this one, it just has the title on the last page. And the title is in the tiniest of print, and it says World's End. It's so hard for me to point in this sort of mirror world. Does it say World's End on the cover? I don't think so. So that was kind of unusual then. It was because you knew that Sandmans were usually 6 or 5 issues of one story, the title didn't change. And the title would appear in different ways in different Sandmans. Now I've noticed a lot of comics will not have the title, no splash page, no title, splash pages of ads, but no title until the last page of the issue is the splash page. It's a full page picture. It's got the title. It's got the credits. I don't know why it comes right at the end. So the whole time I was reading this, I had no splash page to introduce me to the story. It's like the whole story was a prologue to the splash page at the end, at which point I learned the title. Does the title matter to me at that point? This is called Two Monsters. I don't know. Is that... Then I suddenly go, now I know the title of the story. And that's a not too uncommon thing. Thumbing through my my trade of the Swamp Thing, the first 6 issues or 7 issues, I think I found that the splash page, the title page, was at the end of each issue, which I think is even more odd in the middle of a trade paperback. Anyhow, and I see other people doing that too. I think Scott Snyder likes that a lot, but so does the author of Dial H, in which we find out on the last page of the book was called Sundial H. Maybe we're supposed to, laugh at the irony of that once we've read the whole story. But I think if it said Sundial H on the front cover or on the splash page, if there had been a splash page, that would have helped me. Is there a splash page here? So I think there's no big splash page at all till the last page. It's all panels. So that's a complete reversal of, my old expectations, where there's supposed to be one splash page. It's the first page, gives me the title. Now there's only one splash page in this issue, and it's the last page, and it gives me the title and the credits. Very strange, I think. Do I mind it? No. I think it's fun the first few times you notice it. Hey, they put the title at the end of the story. And then we got lots of comics with no titles whatsoever that I could notice. This Guarding the Globe, even though in a lot of ways this is a modern play on very traditional superhero fun, there's no title at all. No title at all. There is, in these Image comics, they give the credits on the inside cover. So we got the title of the comic book again, and credits. Nice enough. Good way. You don't have to clutter up the art with credits. So that's cool. The Punisher, Marvel comics generally now have this sort of front page, and it's kind of a title page. It just says The Punisher, and then it tells you about the cast and the plot so far. But other than that, there's no title to this issue, beginning or end. There's no splash page either, I believe. Whoops, I don't want to show that page. That's too big of a spoil. But it's all panels. Very little dialogue, but lots and lots of panels of art. The artist had to work hard on this baby. Very hard, and did a great job. So no titles there. Higher Earth from Boom Comics. No title. Just like the Image has the credits on the inside cover, repeats the title of the comic book. I don't know when this comes out in trades, presuming it lasts longer than one trade, which I hope it does. It's a fantastic comic. I don't know if it will have a title for each trade or just say Volume 1. Who knows on that. Some trades have titles. Usually it seems like the title's not a big deal. Like on this Swamp Thing, the title Volume 1, Raise Them Bones. It's just down in small print there. And it's Volume 1 is maybe the more important thing than Raise Them Bones. Prophet, also from Image, and no title. Wait a minute. Maybe this does. It says Chapter Unis, whatever that means. The other Prophets I looked at didn't have a title, so this does have a title. Now, but at least in DC Comics and probably in lots of other companies' comics, the title can just be anywhere and any size. So here in this most recent Animal Man, Red Birth, the title is just a little tiny title on the first page, which isn't quite a splash page, but it is the credit page. So, that's the modern version of the traditional thing. Here on Earth 2, another title that's just down at the bottom of the page with the credits. And it's a title that's on what is one of those, what I think, introductory beat pages before we get the big splash. But the big splash doesn't have the title or the credits on it in this case. It's sort of a page and a quarter or a page and a third splash. Here's one that harkens back a bit, kind of has that sort of middle period thing where you get a one-page intro and then your big double-page splash with a big title. This looks very old-fashioned and retro now. And I think that in this comic book they wanted a slightly classic DC feel. You also get this is a limited series. I think the title of it is just The Secret Service, and that's great because it'll all fit into one volume. They do a kind of double-page spread on the title with credits there. Interesting. Nice design. These Mark Millar comics are very nicely designed. Saga, it's just chapter 6. It says chapter 6 on the cover, and the inside front cover in smaller letters, chapter 6, and we get our credits. We do always get a nice splash page in Saga, but with no title. And, well, I don't want to show it to give it away, but Saga always ends each issue with a splash page, too. But for those who haven't read issue 6 yet or are about to read the trade, I don't want to show the very last page of this arc. Another interesting thing, Danger Club, another great comic from Image, always starts with with one page of a retro comic book version of our heroes. So these do have titles in it. But I don't think they're the titles of the issues, just the titles of an imaginary comic. So I think it's just Danger Club. Then we go into the regular time and we get no further titles. Whoops, that's pretty gruesome. So yeah, then we just get our story. I don't think there's any title at the end. Although interestingly, right at the bottom there, it says next issue, The Secret Empire. So that implies a title. I have to look at Danger Club number 3. So that was Danger Club number 2 saying next issue, Secret Empire. Here on their splash page, there's no mention of Secret Empire. Is there a title anywhere? Nope, no title anywhere. So, I don't know what that means. This splash page goes back to those ones I really like where the title is inside the explosion kind of signal. Finally, we've got Marvel Comics. They have their titles on an actual title page, like in a book. But the title page it gives you the credits and it gives you the story so far. It's kind of like the inside of a paperback book where they tease you to read the rest. And then the comic continues on with things splash page-like, but no titles on them or credits because that's all taken care of on the front page. And that's pretty standard in Marvel Comics now. Usually the title is not done in a really flashy way. It's just simply printed. A difference might be Daredevil, in which the title is always integrated into a newspaper front page. So I assume the title of this one is Damned If You Do, Damned If You Don't. And then we get the credits. So unlike other Marvel comics, this front page is a little something special to be paid more close attention to, even if you've been reading Daredevil already. And here I'll just end with, this is last month's Earth 2, first page splash page with the title on it and the credits. Very traditional, very cool page. It's weird, in my mind I thought most comic books are like that still, and I just didn't notice that. I mean, I knew that they vary it up, and I couldn't find it, but I know I read one comic book where like the splash title happened in the middle of the book. So yeah, interesting. I don't know. The one thing I don't particularly like, except if it were just the very rare surprise case, is of putting the splash page at the end. I think all these techniques developed originally as an interesting break from the expected splash page with the title on the very first page. And now you almost never get that. So it's funny that when you do get it, it's kind of a surprise thing. I think the most common is like 3 pages, and then on the 4th page, you get the splash. So anyway, whoa, I thought I'd do this in about 5 minutes, and I've gone on for 20 minutes. So catch you all later.